Hey everyone, welcome back to Bros and Shows. I'm your host, Josiah, aka Mahler67, and with me, as always, I got my buddy, I got my pal, I got my brother Austin. Austin, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear about that, Austin. So, Austin, first thing I gotta ask, how was your weekend, man?
It was pretty busy. We just had a lot of stuff going on. Because like starting this weekend, we can start moving into our place. We finally got the keys and everything like that. So,
Very
you
nice.
know, trying to get everything packed and get it ready to go on, like it's rough. Like, trying to do everything at one time. So
Where
yeah,
are you
it's
moving to? Like
just like
what part of just are you still in
north.
the town or
Yeah, I'm
okay.
still in Mount Vernon, so yeah. I'll
Okay.
be in the Vern still. It's just we since Chloe is part of our lives now, we gotta find more space. So we found a 2-bedroom house with a fenced-in area for Ralph, which is perfect for him. He'll love it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been just busy with that, and school and work and all that stuff. And you know, my wife got another job. Like they moved her to a different job so that like she could be more safe with the kicking and like the biting and screaming of kids. With a baby it's kind of rough, a lot of stress. So
What
she does
baby do you know who bites?
um well,
That's a
these kids that
demon.
she deals with these kids that she deals with are like 1 to 2 years old.
Yeah, it's a
um
demon. I'm sorry.
they bite, they scream, they kick, they throw chairs. It's just, yeah, they're rambunctious. They're full of that sugar. So so we've been kind of dealing with that. And then this weekend's gonna be busy too because we're moving everything in. And and then plus we've been having to go to a specialist for our daughter because we found out that my wife suffers from a disease called a 22q, which is when you're missing a chromosome. She was born that way and she was passed down with that genetically. So we're trying to figure out if Chloe's going to have it. And we just want to know what we might have to deal with. So we can fix those things that might be very fatal to the baby. We want to try to fix those things so that Chloe will live a good, happy life. So, we're setting up for all that. So, we had to go to the doctor's appointment Monday, and that's like an hour away from here. So that's a long drive. And we were there at 9 a.m. and we never got out of the hospital until 3:30. So it was a very long day. And my wife kept yelling at me because I kept falling asleep during the ultrasound because it's in a dark room and they're just, doing these pictures for a whole hour. And I'm like, so it's like, wake up. And I'm like, hey, come on, man. I'm awake. And she's like, why are you sleeping? I was like, I'm in a dark room. It's nice in here, cool. And this chair is very comfortable.
Mm-hmm. You're like, it's the perfect storm. Why ain't you asleep?
So yeah,
This
how
is
was
have
your
another
weekend?
life. My other weekend. Well, my weekend was pretty okay. Went out to play at a Vampire the Masquerade game out in Altoona, PA. They just started one up not too long ago. Got to go. It was the 4th time they've ever played. Me and my friend Brandon and one of his friends, I think his name's Charles or something like that. I don't actually remember his name. Unfortunately, I didn't quite commit to memory at that time. All went to play. It was really fun. It was enjoyable, and I'll probably go back out there. But whenever I go back out there, I'll make a new character for that thing because I want to make a mid-max character. Like, I have the one thing I'm good at, and that's all I do. And out there, it's a IA game, so they allow IA and Anarchs at their game. And I can be a Caitiff, which is a Thin Blood. And the thing that makes Thin Blood so strong is that I basically have control to pick 3 disciplines I want, and I just get them as I choose. And they have some really OP things, so you can come up with some pretty stupid combos. And so I've been making one that's just like, what do you do? Oh, I punch things really, really hard, and nothing can hit me in return. unless they're using mentor social, but because of game mechanics, they only get one of those per round, so that does not matter too much.
You sounds like a man of culture.
Man of culture, as they say. And I'm literally like figuring out the min-max of things, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to have potence, I'm going to have fortitude, I'm going to have celerity. Celerity makes me go really quickly, so I get 2 rounds per combat. Fortitude makes it that I can't be hit. And then celerity also gives me plus to my dodge, so even if they do get past all my dodge points, they then I absorb basically everything they throw at me. And then I'm like, okay, and then I'm going to have potence with my punches, so I'll do 3 damage per round. And then I'll have the Bruja technique, which will give me that aggravated damage, so you can't soak it like normal damage. And if they do soak it, then they're taking double the damage in return. And if I hit a exceptional, I get 3 times. And then I'll have this that gives me 4 extra health, and like all these little things that I'm like, I'm just going to be all combat. And then when people talk to me, it's just going to be like, oh man, I'm just a normal guy, man. I'm just a chill guy. I'm just here. I'm a vampire now, apparently. That's cool, I guess. And I'm going to really play it like a guy who was turned about, I want to say like 10 years ago. So I'm not quite accustomed to the life. And I'm just walking around talking to people like they're normal people. Just be like, yeah, no, have you seen the Mets yet? Like, you watch baseball? That's awesome. That's cool. I like those. That's cool. Man. And things like that. I just really want to enjoy that and do that. So I don't know. I'll figure out and decide how that goes. But speaking about,
actually, like what's really funny is I've been thinking about like if I was ever going to remake a character, it was going to be in Vampire, and the concept I had was the most ridiculous thing ever. Was be a ex-chef from a very, very expensive restaurant, and his biggest regret is not being able to have garlic anymore.
Yep. You laugh about that, but that is a legit function in the game, because like you're not allowed to eat food. So there are characters who don't have the ability Personal Masquerade, which allows them to eat food. They still have to vomit it up later, but they're able to enjoy it. You have characters based around the fact that they can no longer enjoy something that they once loved. And then like even when it comes to like drugs or whatnot in the game, you can't take the drug yourself. You have to have someone take the drug who's human and then drink their blood to get their effects. And so people who have like drug addictions or whatnot, they essentially have like ghouls and like herd around them that's just like, you guys are partying 24/7 because I want that stuff, man.
So what we do in the shadows is actually correct about drinking drunk blood. That's
at
awesome.
least in VTM. Here's the funny thing, right? What we do in the shadows basically took the manual of VTM and just say, what type of crazy stuff can we come up with these parameters?
Man.
Or you know, what we do in the shadows took it from a source material, and VTM took it from the same source material. I don't know, but because there's a bunch of that stuff like running, not going over open or running water. That's a flaw that some vampires could have. Dracula is a real thing in VTM, but he was a old elder who invited the person over and told him the life, like the whole book Dracula, Bram Stoker. He basically spilled it and people were like, it's a masquerade breach, we're going to kill you for doing this. And then it was passed off as this fiction book, and it actually protected the masquerade more because it put in the zeitgeist of everyone's life this idea of vampires and how mythical they are. And so it's like, okay, that actually, not gonna lie, got us in the first half, but it's all good now. That's basically what that was.
That's why, like, in most vampire movies I've seen where they've talked about, like, when there's, like, vampires in that universe, they talk about Bram Stoker's Dracula being a fable. Like, they're like, it's a fable. And then, like, you're like, wait a minute, but, like, everything in there is like that. So I was like, oh, that's cool how they, like, you know, it's like that fable. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, in VTM, he was a real, I think he was either a Zamishi or a Carpathian, it's one of those two, who did everything that is described in the books. And whenever it got released, he was getting blood hunted because he broke the masquerade, like, horrifically. And then nothing, like, everyone was just like, oh, what a good fiction book. And they're like, all right, you're okay this time.
You
but watch it.
You only get one.
I don't know. I'm sure he probably died still. I don't know the whole story behind him. I never looked into it. But Austin, speaking of stories, we watched Junji Ito, Maniac, Japanese Tales of the Macabre, the Netflix adaptation / version / series. I don't quite get it, to be honest. I know that there was another like Junji Ito collection that is other like short stories or kind of like animated series that they did a while ago.
Yeah, in 2018.
2018. Okay. So I don't know if any of these stories overlap or not, or if these stories are originally mangas that got put onto the screen, or if these were completely created things. I know nothing of Junji Ito. It's legitly my one friend from LARP is a big fan of Junji Ito. I keep seeing it, and then I saw Netflix was making an adaptation, and I asked him if he would like it, and he's like, hopefully it's better than the collection.
Yeah.
And I just kind of shrugged. I'm like, I don't know what that means, so I'll have to watch it to see. So me having no context for the show going into this will be interesting. I think you also have no context for the show, but you probably have more context now because our friend Andrew is also a fan of Junji Ito.
Yeah.
So you may have got more than me at this point, but the one consensus I hear a lot from people who are big fans of him is the art style from the book version is more grasping and more like I don't know, like meaningful than an animation version.
Yeah.
Which is weird to me because I feel like animation would be the best way to tell stories from the book, but it may just be they're not capturing the original feel of it very well. But Austin, what did you think of Junji Ito, Maniac, Japanese Tales of Macabre?
So, going forward, I knew nothing about this guy. Nothing at all.
No.
I have fell in love.
Oh no. Probably not the guy you want to fall in love. Yeah, he's in Japan. You'll have to move.
So after I started watching it, I watched the whole season and I couldn't get enough of it. I need to know more. So I actually watched the collection. It's available on YouTube, all 12 episodes. So I got to watch that. I also have ordered the manga because like I have realized a couple things I didn't know. He actually just did some artwork for Magic the Gathering, the Phyrexian. He did a bunch of Phyrexian art. I didn't even know. The other thing is I will say this about the show. So after watching this show, I kind of was like, this isn't that great. There was some things that were awesome about the show. There were some great things about the show, but it wasn't, there was a lot of things that I did not like about it. And overall, like if I was going to do like a rating scale, like I would probably like put this at a 6. Like I wouldn't put this at like a 9 or a 10. And it's really hard. But then I've done a lot of research and I've looked at things and I've actually talked to my buddy Andrew about it. Most of what we've seen on the series is a direct interpretation, like a direct adaptation from the manga. But the problem is them not capturing the feel of the translation that needs to happen. Like the atmosphere that you need to put in with music and a way that things are looking at a certain way. Like you have to do something in film that's different than just a manga. And because the thing is even though manga has pictures and pages, you still have to put yourself in that atmosphere, and like what you're hearing and what you're feeling is what you love about those stories. And the number one thing I will say is the stories in the show are phenomenal. There is some stinky ones that are not great, and then there's like some good ones that I loved. I very truly loved. And it's actually something weird has come to happen to me lately, and that is about 2 years ago, I was in a college class where I had to write a poem. And so I wrote a poem called Disillusion. And disillusion is a like a third person experience of a divorce from their significant other at a lawyer reading table where they like pretty much I forget what it's called, where they separate things. They pretty much like go over it. And I turned that paper in and got an A, and the teacher of that class said, hey, there's a writing class that we select a bunch of written things and we put in a contest, and you can get it in the newsletter at college, or it will be in their books for the years. So I got a email today to call that professor, and that professor announced today that I am the top 5 that are left. Nice. And I've been really thinking after watching one episode, which we'll talk about, where I think I'm going to start writing horror short stories, because I feel that I'm good at it. I just need to put it down on paper, and I've been lacking a lot on it. But I told my wife about it, and she's like, you are really good at stuff like that. Like, I've seen your writing, it's really good. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to try that. So this actually helped me push my way through of being fearful of like just not going for it, like just to do it. And so I'm going to start doing that. But this show left me very excited, but also a little empty. Like, it just felt like some things were not done properly, and if they just took that small time, I think it would have been great. But overall, I'd have to not, it's not something I would really recommend, and I'm going to read the mangas before I recommend anything else. But I think the mangas are probably going to be a lot better, because most other people I've talked to that have watched the show has said the manga is way better. Like, you need to experience those images that okay, I'm really bad at pronouncing his name. Junji Ito, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think he does great art. I've looked up a lot of things of his, and I'm really excited to wait for the collection to come in so I can read it. But yeah, that's what I thought of it so far. It was okay. It wasn't as bad as the 2018. I've watched those, and those are bad. So I have to say that they are taking a step forward with the animation. The animation's correct there. I just think that the atmosphere and some of the models that they come up with was just really bad. But what did you think?
So, I'm not a huge fan of horror. The horror I like is like the things that go bump in the night that are the main character, not a non-main character dealing with the things that go bump in the night. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the things like I can't even think of any like
psychological horror, like that kind of deal where it's
I like psychological horror. What I'm trying to say is, like, whenever it's done from the monster's perspective, not the human that stumbles upon the monster. Gotcha. I think of the show Being Human, where it's about three beings, a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost living together, and that's done in like a weird thing or whatever. But the idea of seeing it from his perspective is more entertaining or more interesting to me. I like that, which is probably why I liked Vampire the Masquerade, where you play as a vampire and not as like a hunter of vampires. I think it's great. Whenever it's just like a okay person walking around, then it's just like, oh no, spooky things happen to them and a monster is attacking them, I'm not as big of a fan, because I don't like that feeling of powerless. I enjoy like the humanization of villains or bad guys, or how they live their lives and how that like conflicts with all that stuff. That's why I enjoy. So straight up horror is never really something that gets me. Off the get-go, went into this not knowing what to expect, but knowing that this was a level of horror, and that this was more like disturbing would probably be the terminology, like a lot of disturbing things. And I will say, a lot of the stuff that was supposed to be disturbing didn't disturb me as much, and more just like weirded me out. Like the first episode, I will say, I almost was like, I don't think I'm going to like this at all. Because the first episode was pretty terrible. Like, I don't think it was good.
It's the lowest rated episode of the show.
I definitely understand that, because it
is the worst. I think it's the worst episode.
Nothing really happens. It's this family of people trying to like convince this girl, and like of course the little kid was going to be convicted, but then it's like the ghost just goes into the tomb and that's it. That right there is what I'm going to say is my biggest issue with this series, and maybe it's just how it is with Junji Ito in general. I feel like it cuts away too early or doesn't finish things properly. The first episode I felt that way because like the ghost of the dad comes out and goes in the tomb and it just ends there. And you're like, wait, so they're all alive? We're not going to see anything change from all that stuff. Okay, that's just the end of that. I think my favorite episodes are whenever they end it with a satisfying ending in comparison to what is going on. Some of the ones that I think of is the balloon episode. That one was the episode where I'm like, okay, I'm interested in watching the rest of this, because nothing is more kind of like chilling or gripping to me than seeing like a lifeless body like float by. That legitly like unnerved me in a way that I was at work watching it. I remember watching that and just being like, am I scared? No, I am not scared. But I do feel slightly disturbed by seeing that imagery, whatever. Imagery. And thank you. And then I started imagining like what it would be like if a floating head like showed up into the window, like that type of stuff. Or like how would I handle it and things like that. Some of the other episodes that I felt like ended on good notes, like the ice cream episode ended on a solid note. Not really solid, it was more liquid, but it ended on a good note. You
just had to do it. You had to do it.
The Tombstone episode is another one that I felt like ended on a good note. Another episode that I felt like didn't end on a good note was the final episode, thing where Suichi, I don't know, like corrupts a cat and then it electroshocks him and the family all runs, and I was like, okay, he's dead. And then it just cuts to them in the hospital and he's fine and everything's okay, and he's like, I curse you, and it ends. I was like, what? That's how it ends? I will say, like, those are the episodes that make me kind of like, oh, okay. Oh, another episode that I feel like ends and I'm not satisfied with, freaking whale episode, or whatever that creature is from the sea.
Oh, that is one of the things that I irk with so much. You have a great environment, you have like this mysterious creature, but then it's so stupid, like the ending.
It's not even stupid. It's like they cut it open and it's like these people are parasites.
They're acting like parasites.
And then they just run away and you're like, that's it? They just run away and we all forget about these like parasitical humans. Like, are we to believe? Yeah, are we to believe they go back into the ocean to get re-eaten? Like, is that what we're set up to believe? Like, that makes no freaking sense. Yeah, I was there was episodes like that was very much like that. But the episodes that disturbed me, and it was to the point where as I was watching it, I was having a hard time watching multiple episodes in a row. Because I would get like one or two episodes in and I'm like, I need to have like something funny in my face. Because I like comedy, I like light humor stuff. And so I would get maybe like 2 or 3 episodes in and then just be like, all right, I'm good. And because some of them would be split in half, I felt like I would watch 7 or 8 episodes. And it's like, no, man, you watched 3 episodes, buddy. You watched three episodes and you gotta watch 3 more by tomorrow and what. So it's like, ugh. Man, that was rough for Reno. But I do think there was some solid episodes, and I definitely get. By halfway through the series, I was like calling everything that was happening in each one. I'm like, okay, this is what it's going to do, and this is how it's going to be, all that stuff. And can I say now the reason why I think people like the manga more than these adaptations?
Yeah.
You said it was like atmosphere and like the voices or whatever. I think, and this is my personal opinion, right? When it comes to manga, when you are drawing pictures and you're transferring stuff, all that, you have to explain away a lot of stuff via text things to make it more palpable, because you're not going to have like 50 pages of nothing happening and just showing something happen. You're going to have people talk about it. It's one of the things that, like Naruto or Dragon Ball Z's, you have characters just sitting around for a while just talking. Because as a manga writer, you're not going to have scenes of people just sitting at the dinner table talking things out unless that's what your show is. And the issue with that is whenever you're trying to tell a story, give information, and move something at the same time, you set it up to be cringy, is how I put it. You know, one of the things that I always find the most cringy whenever I'm watching anime, and I acknowledge this is the reason why, is the explanation when no one asks situation. Like, whenever they're going to cut into the whale or whatever, the doctor's like, oh, this is some weird specimen, and they're just talking over like still shots of the beach, and they're just information dumping on you, just all this information. It's like, it'd been cool if they showed us this information, but that would require budget to like draw and animate all that stuff, which probably didn't follow the source material, because he didn't do that, because he is drawing the pictures on top of writing the information. And then he's like, cut open before they think we're all inhumane or something like that. And I'm like, no one said that. What they should have done is like, people start realizing that there's people in there and start crying out for them to do it. But you can't do all that together. And so you get a lot of that information dump, and it's just kind of like cringy dialogue / explanation or exposition. And it makes things feel forced, especially whenever it's done in animated versions. And I felt like most of these episodes that I have issue with, that was a big teller. The only episode I felt like did it good with that kind of setup was the library episode. When the guy's looking for the books, because
library vision.
Yeah, because he's legitly losing his mind, so he's rambling off things. And he is reading books and he's quoting books to explain things. And I'm like, okay, see, this is giving us the information. He's going crazy because he's reading this. And then there is one point where I'm kind of like, okay, that kind of takes me out a little bit, is whenever he starts explaining to no one, just to the audience, basically, that he has to memorize all the books so he won't ever lose a book. And I'm like, okay, they could have shown that in a different way, where like the woman came in and is like, what are you doing? He's like, I can't lose any more books, I'll learn all this, blah blah blah, and done it in some way to make it seem more reasonable. But it felt like he was just talking to the audience or to himself at that time. That's mainly my that's mainly my gripe, and how I feel like the reason why these animation versions will never match up to the manga, because when you're reading the manga, you need that information. You're not seeing these scenes play out, you're not seeing the pace and the information that's being fed to you, versus the visual information you're getting is a lot denser and more like detailed, most likely. So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go on a whole rant there. It was legitly totally. Like I was thinking about it as I was watching it, and I'm like, that's probably the issue that people have.
Yeah, and I you know, and the other one of the biggest issues I have is like music. Okay. I feel like some of the music was way off on this anime. The theme, like the opening theme,
ending theme is always
the opening
that gets
theme,
me every time. Man.
I don't like the opening theme. It's like some nightclub like music.
You know what's funny though? And I'll be honest here. If I was sleeping in my bed at night and suddenly that opening theme comes on like in the middle of the night, and I wake up to that, like those visions that are showing off and that voice going off, I would be freaking out. I would legitly be like kind of startled and scared. It's the equivalent of when we were little and we used to go visit like Aunt Deb's house, and we would leave on Cartoon Network and go to bed to like Family Guy or whatever, and then I would wake up to Case Closed, but it's in the middle of the scene where they find the dead body, and it's just like oh, and all this like horror, and I'm just like, oh no, I'm freaking out, man. But like then like you watch it normally and you're like, this was a very lighthearted episode. That guy wasn't even dead, he was just sleeping, but they showed it in the way that made it look like he was dead. But as a kid, you're like, oh my god, I was not prepared for that. That ending thing, man. anytime that ending theme went off, I'm like, what's disturbing about this is how cheerful it is.
Yeah. I did not like the beginning theme of the show. It just didn't really, I just don't, it didn't feel right. I think if it was more of like an eerie feel, it gets you set up for what you're about to attend. And I feel like that was like, hey guys, you guys ready for some stories? And then like you see a story and you're like, oh, that one was okay. And what's really weird is like most of the stories I enjoyed were two-parters. They weren't just one episode. And that's weird for me because like I was like, man, some of these 2 episodes are bangers. Like these are good. And then there was like, I think one episode where it was a full episode that I actually enjoyed. But the other thing that like I also have a problem with is the use of some bad 3D animation that happens in this show. Like the Toontown episode, great episode. The ending where the girl like comes out of the vision to like engulf him, the animation they used was just really cheesy and not really good to me. That and one of the other things is the balloon, hanging balloons, where the guy's up in the tree and then the head comes over and then his head hangs him and then he just like ragdolls his whole body the whole time, and it drove me nuts. I was like, that looks stupid, that looks dumb, and it was just really badly animated, and it kind of took me out of that story a little bit. And I enjoyed the story up until that time.
I'm not even going to fight you on that because I have a mixed agreement on that. I remember being in high school and watching like animation, like animes where they would have the every now and then jump to 3D models for action shots, and I always hated them. I'm like, ugh, just animate it. Don't make it 3D models. I know why they do it. Like it saves a lot of money, especially whenever it is a thing that would require a lot of detail. Specifically, like that rock monster had like a lot of rigid rocks that every movement it did would require like repositioning of things, all in great details, when they could just hire one person to model it out and then just duplicate everything, make it fine. But like you said, it needs to be higher quality to not get that feeling.
Cheese fill, like it's a cheese, like it feels cheap, like it doesn't feel, it takes you out of a story sometimes where you're just like, oh, okay.
What also helps is if they do that and not make it so in the forefront, you know, like let's zoom in on this animated face of these like rocks protruding out, like how about you don't, and you just have it dark and you just start seeing this wiggly thing come out that you barely see, and you see like glaring thing. I get that Junji Ito is all about the animation, like pictures and like the grasp of it, but it just seems really I don't know how you say it, like it felt weird for sure. I definitely
and I also feel like there was some awful episodes, and like I'm gonna name off the ones that I really did not care for. The first episode, number 1, is awful. It's the worst one. The strange Hizira siblings, that one. The thing that I love about horror like this, and I know that you said something different in a way, but I like to be unsettled. I don't like things to be resolved, and they don't have to be completely resolved, but they also have to show the problem. And like this episode, it resolves it, but in the most stupidest way. And I just feel like they just like, oh, he goes in the thing and he's never heard from again. And I'm like, that's not scary. That just doesn't leave any eeriness or like, and it was just a really weird tale.
It's not even like scary. It's also like half-hearted.
Yeah. The same way with Intruder, the one where the guy finds his alternate universe person burying his friends. I just thought that episode was very rushed. Like very
I thought it was very left open. Like it ends in a way that you're like, what?
Yeah. And the fish one's a perfect one. That was, they took a great atmosphere and then they just abruptly end it with anything that I remember watching that episode, pausing it, and going, that was the dumbest one next to the number one. Like, I just felt so bad, and I liked the atmosphere. I thought it was a good atmosphere, but just the story was like,
I thought the story could have been good. You know what? You know what? One I really liked that I was like, yeah, no, that actually like kind of freaked me out or unsettled me, and it's because of the stuff I have on my house. Is the hair episode, Hair in the Attic?
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that, yeah.
Because we have an attic. No one goes up there, and occasionally whenever you walk by the door or you're around it, you will hear like scratching and banging coming from the attic. And it's because no one goes up there, and the landlord has not fixed it or repaired things up there, so rodents and like squirrels get in there all the time. And after watching that episode, now I'm just walking by and I hear it, and I'm just like, one of these days I'm going to get killed by a hair monster. And I don't know who I told that I liked their long hair and freaked them out and broke up with them, but I'll get going. The other episodes that I was not a huge fan of is all the Soichi episodes, the kid with the nails in his mouth.
So actually, in reality, Soichi actually is in the 2018 adaptation too.
Really?
He's in multiple stories that I've watched. So
that's why I got, because he's at the end of the credit scenes. He's in the credit scene. He's the kid in the blue orange thing that watches the series unfold.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, if you're going to do something like that, make it an anthology where like the first episode is Soichi, and at the end of the episode he like stops watching the screen, and like that's supposed to be a whole like he's watching something that shows him the creepy weird things. And then the last episode is the Soichi episode that aired, and it kind of like what you call it,
connects
like
them.
connects
Connects
puts
them.
them in like barracks of some sort. Doesn't really do that, and it's just one of those things that well, man, I don't really know. I didn't like it at all, and like he wasn't one of my favorite ones, and he definitely, I felt like he deserved bad things to happen to him, and he just kind of got away, because it actually made me really upset whenever he really started hurting the animal, and I was like,
yeah, see, that's actually one of the things where I just stopped when he put a rope around that cat's neck. I was just like, nope, not gonna like this episode already, because I don't like animals being tortured like that. Like I even hate it in regular films when someone kills an animal. Like, it just drives me nuts. I hate it. You know, and you know, there's a couple episodes like I was talking about, like, you know, some of the things that were awful, but I like to talk now about some of the episodes that I loved and I actually enjoyed the stories. I think Toontown is a really good episode. I like Toontown, about the gravestones being like this form of the things.
It had a full story. It had a boy and his sister are going up to visit a friend. They hit someone. They freak out. They don't know who it is, so they're like, "We'll put him in the car and take him to the hospital." Oh, she dies. Okay, we'll just bury it before we get in town. Oh, we got stopped because there's these weird tombs, and then everything goes on from there. And then surprise, it was actually the sister. Hit the daughter, and it's like, oh no. And I knew. So at that point in the show, that's whenever I a little bit before, like halfway through the series, I started like predicting things. And whenever they hit the girl and they're like, her face is so swollen, I can't tell who she is. And I'm like, that's either going to be their friend or someone connected to the friend. And it's like, it's your sister's missing. I'm like, there it is. Yep, that's a.
Yeah, I still think it's a really good story. It's not my favorite one, but it is up there.
It's a solid story. It's legitly, I would show that to someone if I was like, you want to know what Junji Ito's kind of about, or at least the Netflix show of it. This is a solid one to watch if you want to watch a full thing.
Yeah, and the only thing that I have a problem with is that 3D person.
Yeah,
like, that's
3D,
it.
Yep. Yeah, I understand that. And if someone looked at me and said that was a weird 3D person, I would be like,
yeah, you're correct. You know, the other ones I want to talk about is Sandman Layer. I thought Sandman Layer was an interesting concept. It was one of the shorter episodes. It was like a 10-minute episode
I
about
can't remember
a
what
guy
Sandman. Oh, he can't sleep. That's it.
Yep, because his alternate self would come out and consume people.
See, that's one of those episodes that I felt like ended too soon.
Yes,
You don't
I
get
agree
to
with that.
see his alternate self. You get to see him kind of in the distance or whatever. But it's like, what? That's it?
And his finishing line was really not great, where it was like,
He's like, she's inside me. She's my organs
I have
now.
consumed her now, and she is one of me. And like, you're like, oh, okay. And he's telling this to like police officers or some shit.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you ain't going to jail, buddy.
But one, there was a couple satisfying episodes. Ice Cream Bus was satisfying because it came to a conclusion.
It came to a logical
creepy
conclusion with it's like, oh no, this ice cream is like it turns kids into ice cream. Oh no, my son has turned to ice cream. Hey, stop eating that. Oh no, he's ice cream. And then it ends with it showing the bus and more kids getting on it, and he looks at the camera and then walks in and closes the door. And I'm like, great ending, solid, fantastic. Wrap it up and send it, ship it.
There was a pet peeve of mine that was in this episode, but I thought this was a banger. It was a good episode. But there's a part where the bus turns, and when it turns the corner, the animation is awful. Like, someone did not want to animate that correctly, and I looked at it and I was like, that looks stupid. But after that, I was like, this is a good story. This was perfect. It was well executed. But that was a pet peeve of mine. And pet peeves are just small, but that, if anyone's like, hey, what is Junite? I'll be like, this is the episode I'll probably show them. Probably the second episode I show them, because the first episode I actually enjoyed enough where it freaked me out a little bit. But before I get to that, let's talk about, let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm looking through these. Oh man, there is some good episodes. So the highest rated episode on IMDb is Alley and Headless Statue episode.
Really?
Where yeah, the alleyway episode was pretty good too. I liked it where like the bookshelf behind it had a window,
which I predicted.
Yeah,
I was like that
too.
That bookshelf. The fact that there's just a random bookshelf there tells me that there's either something behind it or that's a hidden. Because I didn't realize at that point that was next to the alley. I thought that's going to be like a hidden door, and someone's going to come in and like kill him or something like that.
I never realized it until the guy that approaches him tells him about the window, and then it clicked. It's behind the bookshelf.
Yeah, well, yeah. The second he's like, it's in there, I was like, it's behind the bookshelf.
Yeah, it's behind the bookshelf.
You're aware of the bookshelf because they keep pointing to the bookshelf.
Yeah.
The second he walked in, he looked at the bookshelf. The girl comes in to help him. She talks about how the bookshelf was hers and all that stuff. It's like, how come they didn't give him other furniture? They've only gave him a bookshelf. That's why. I will say that episode unfortunately ended in a mixed ending for me. As much as I felt like it did close with the girl being stranded down there and the statues coming to life to get revenge on her, it's like, all right, cool. It ends before you start hearing or seeing anything, and you're like, okay. And then it's like, okay, is the boy dead too? Because he passed out apparently down there. Is like, so we just assume he's dead too, or is it going to be a thing like that? There were so many wives, like he didn't deserve to die. I thought he was stupid. The fact whenever he moved that and he saw like the rope, my first brain is just like, don't go down there. Don't go. Yep. Why you go down there? That just tells me that someone's going to come and cut the rope. And sure enough, someone came and cut the rope. And at that point, I thought what was going to be a thing is the girl got her mom to get more people in there to let them go down and investigate, cut the rope, and like basically she's collecting bodies down there, like those shadows. That's what I thought it was going to be. And then it was like, oh no, he passed out, and she climbs down. I'm like, why did you climb down? Because you had to? It would have been better if like the kid found some way to like manipulate her to like do something, and then he forced her down, and then I
agree.
Cut down.
I agree. Like, I thought like the whole concept was like when he passes out, she was going to come down and like be like, oh, he passed out. and then like he would like push her away and then climb
push
up the
her
rope
and
real
climb
quick.
up and pull it up and then leave her there to die. Yeah, I thought something like that. And then it's like, no, he just really passed out.
Yeah.
Why?
Missed opportunity. And then the other one was the headless statue one where it was like
that one I felt ended on a solid note. Like it wasn't a perfect note, but it was
like a average, like it was just a normal story that you would see in horror, and I was okay with it. Like it's fine to have those stories. Like I'm okay with it as long as it's executed properly, which this was.
Me watching this series, I'll be honest, is if I was watching it with someone else, nonstop you would hear me just being that guy yelling, just like, don't go in there, leave, like, and that was me.
You'd be like the girl from Scary Movie.
Oh, he's behind the curtain. Whenever she like went to the guy's house and he opened the door with like the mask over his mouth and he's like fully dressed up, I'm just like, he's a mannequin, don't trust him. And then she like takes his hand, you hear that creak, and I'm just like, do you not notice the hard body? Like his hand is stone. Nope. All right, yeah, screw me, what do I know? Like, you're fine. Oh, you deserve to die. And then you know what also made me laugh too is when she like used the stool to break the one and it's like, it's a plaster body, and I went, it's plaster? You're scared of plaster?
Just karate chop the damn rabbit.
Just take that stool and just yick each one. I don't even understand what she left the stool. She didn't even swing that hard into that thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then it also didn't make sense to me that she got out of the first door and she ran to another classroom. It's like, why would you go to another classroom?
Get out of there. What is wrong with you? Get out of there.
Because the story needed to end. It needed to end in a way that like freaked her out and all that stuff. Though I will say it was funny that whenever they all caught her, it wasn't a like we're ripping your head off like I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like grotesque, like her head starts getting ripped off and that's how it ends. They're all just sitting there like petting her, and then the knife stabs through the thing, and that's where it ends. And I was like,
I want her.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Now another episode that was kind of like this feel, where it was like an average horror story, but it was executed okay. The Whispering Woman, I thought was really well done.
Which one's the Whispering? Was that the second to last?
The girl
who talks to the one girl. That was another episode where I knew where it was going.
Yeah, but it was executed okay.
I liked it a lot. It also made me like. Here's the thing about this show, Austin, is there's a lot of certain things get hint on in this show a lot that disturbs me more than the actual disturbing things. You know, like seeing the animal torture in the last episode where he's like starts strangling the cat kind of made me disturbed. When you see domestic abuse with the one girl's husband and the Whispering Woman, and then the other one is like the little girl who was like abusing the little kid. Like that was gonna be. Oh, do you have to go? Like,
I gotta get Ralph.
Feel free to say it because people who listen to this,
take Ralph out, people.
People who listen to this will not know that you're gonna head out if you don't say something at least once, and then it's like, oh, okay, that explains why Josiah's just sitting there ranting about unknown things or changing his perception of thought. Yeah, the show itself is a solid, good show. I like it. I enjoy it. I just feel like some episodes just end in very unsatisfying ways. When he gets back, I'm basically going to rehash this where I have issue with the bully episode because it begins with little girl gets essentially paid to watch after her kid and she bullies him. And then she stops being a bully and she grows up and she's like, I've changed. I need to be a better person. And she falls in love with the kid when he comes back. And it's like, okay, cool. So it's going to be a thing where she like overcomes her bully. And what I assumed was going to happen, which I was wrong on this, I thought he was going to start bullying her in return. Like when they're older, he's going to bully her, like basically become kind of domestic violence, I think is what I thought it was going to go to. And I wasn't going to be okay with it, but I'm like, okay, that's what the story's going to go with. Instead, the husband leaves her with the child, and she goes crazy and starts abusing and hurting the child. And I was like, I can't stand with child abuse. I hate it. And this kid was just trying to live with a mother. Yeah. I was just saying, like, there's so many things in this show that...
Well, she was a piece of trash to begin with, because literally
she changed. Like, that was the whole thing.
No, she didn't.
No,
she
did.
Change.
She did. She did change. She was good. He married her, lived with her, had the child, and then left. And she basically went back, like, she went insane after the 3 years.
She was trash the whole time. She was just not as trashy as she was. And
No.
why I'll say that, no, because remember, she was on that park bench telling her boyfriend about him, and then dumps him instantly and says, I'm actually in love with him. Yeah. I came here to tell you that. That's awful. She's terrible.
But no. Okay, here's the thing.
I'll fight you on this.
She did that. She dumped her boyfriend. At least she explained why she was dumping him. Like, that was a legit thing where it's like, hey, I'm leaving you for him. I love him, blah, 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 blah. That's fine with me. The issue that I have is that she was being a good person. She was being a good mother up to all that point. And she started to go crazy because he left her. And then she's like, this is his revenge for all the years that I bullied him. He did this. And I'm like, first off, that's a trashy level of revenge because he just ruined a little kid's life. And it's like, that's stupid. And that made me really, really upset. I was actually very upset. Stop it, Molly. And 2, she goes crazy and she becomes evil, like Joker level. Whole makeup. I don't understand.
That whole time it was weird. That makeup, it was like a mix between Misty from Pokemon and the Joker.
Yeah. It's like if Misty and that's exactly what that was. That was 110%.
How she's dressed and everything. It made me it unsettled me a little bit, but I am with you on this episode. That was
I don't like people being hurt in ways that they don't deserve it. And the Whispering Woman was that way.
That episode also had like one of the lackluster episodes where like those girls went into the mountains and found that cult that starves themselves. That episode one was just dry.
That episode made me laugh.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, obviously that's like, they're either all crazy or they sacrifice people or something to that degree. And it's like, no, they just go down, they self-mummify. And I was like, oh, okay. The second she said that, I'm like, your brother's dead. He's a mummy now. And she's like, oh, look at this. This is a pathway going down. Oh, no, there's a bunch of mummies everywhere. Oh, there's my brother. Leave me alone. Get out of here. Oh, no, we're lost. I'm like, that's logical. Like, that's how it would be. You go down there, you get lost, and then it's like, you go crazy seeing nothing but these mummies. And it's like, yeah, you guys die down there.
Yeah.
And that's that. And I was like, okay, cool. That's an ending. Is it satisfying? Because it's a situation of like those people didn't deserve it. They were just trying to get the truth. But you know, sometimes horror films and horror movies end in the good guys or the people don't deserve to live.
One of the other episodes that I liked until a part where the music ruined it for me was the Tomy episode where she's taking pictures of that girl and she ends up like coming and find out she has like something evil in her.
I freaking love that episode, man. I totally forgot about that episode.
I love that episode until right when the body becomes alive again. The music that they select for that was like a Jerry Seinfeld song. It was like like it was like and it was like really bad. And if it was like this creepy and ominous like piano or an organ, I think it would have been great. But like they come out with this and I was like, why do that? It was such a good episode.
So here's my honest truth, right?
Yeah.
I think I liked it because of that music choice. Because I do think
comedy.
Here's my thing. Here's my thought, right? That episode was just crazy to begin with. This girl takes a picture of a girl and she sees like a weird growth on her. And her first instinct is not, oh my God, I need to tell a priest or a doctor or whatever. She's like, I'll throw it to all the kids to like let all the kids see it. And I'm like, okay, that seems weird. Oh no, your boyfriend almost tried to kill you, or the guy you like tried to kill you. Is he going to get charged with murder or attempted murder? Like anything like that? Like, and then she's like hiding, and her mom's like, I'm leaving for the weekend. I hate you. Bye. I left the door unlocked so this killer could come in. And I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah. And then she's like, yeah, no, we just talked through it. It's not actually true. It's like, did you call me a monster? And she turns into it. She they cut her head off. And when that happened, and he's like, oh my gosh, I cut her off. He's like, you killed her. You cut her whole head off. I didn't realize. I'm like, these two are literally Rocksteady and Bebop from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
They are boss, idiots. Chopped your head off, eh?
It's just like, we did it. We got rid of the thing. Oh, and it's like, no, you didn't. You chop off the head, you imbeciles. and then they're just like, oh no, there's no no one saw us. Yeah, no one saw us. And then they turn and see the girl, and they're like, oh. Hey, wake up. We know you're faking. I'm like, why wouldn't they just slit your throat and walk off?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Boss, we don't want to do it anymore.
Boss doesn't want us to do it. And then the head's like, get me out of here, blah, 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 burn off, or what. And then they run, and I was like, what the heck? This episode is more slapstick humor than horror. And then the thing that made me laugh the most is whenever the body stands up, or no, not when the body's, when she gets up and there's blood everywhere, and her first response was, that was weird. I'm not sure whether that was true or not, but I guess I gotta clean up. I was like, what? Girl, what? And like when the body ran off, and like you say like the music or whatever cut you off. The music didn't catch me off because I was listening to it on headphones, and I think that the music in it is a lot more eerier. I think there's a lot of silent tones you may have not heard unless you were listening to it on headphones. Like it had like certain ticks. The music was eerie not because it was eerie like string music, but rather it was like offbeat. I forget what the terminology is, but you know how like most people clap in a 1, 2, 3 frame. If you off clap to music, it makes it unsounding. It's the same thing with like shifting things to like down minor or something like that. And I definitely feel like that happened in that show. And the only thing I will say is that episode made me want to look up a explanation video on it. Because at the end of the episode, she starts cleaning off the wall, and in the lens, it shows her without a head in like her student outfit. And so I'm like, wait, is she dead too? Like, did they chop her head off instead? I don't understand how it ended. And so like, I was just questioning it. I was like, okay, they're not going to continue or elaborate on it. That's just it. Like, I guess I just have to accept with either thinking that she got murdered, she was actually murdered and her head got chopped off and she was the real one who died, or that I don't know, something I don't know, I can't explain. I don't know. That was it. I will say, did you ever find the hidden voice lines in the episodes?
What do you mean?
Did you ever listen to the hidden poems? You never did?
No.
All right. You may know once I go into it. At the end of every episode, if you hit next episode, you'll never see it, or if you go, you'll never see it.
Oh yeah, I always
at the end of the episode, there'll be a point where a psychedelic image comes on the screen, and a poem will play, and it will essentially give like a poem in the form of a third person looking at the next episode or the next one of the next episodes and kind of talking about it. Definitely check them out because they are enjoyable, and the imagery that they show on there shows different episodes. And so I'm like, I wonder if you can take all these ending kind of poems and stick them all together and create like a story of some sort. Or maybe in some way, like you take all the ending poems and you rearrange them in a way that like tell a different story. I think would be very interesting. But that was just my, I saw that and I was like, oh, I accidentally, because I think I watched one episode and I thought I heard someone's voice actor, so I wanted to watch the credits to see if it was someone I knew, and it wasn't. But that's whenever I heard that, and I was like, I did not know this was in the show. So I went back and I listened to all of them, and I was like, oh, yeah, creepy.
So I'd like to talk about my 2 favorite episodes real quick before, because we're running about an hour now. So my 2 favorite episodes are actually tied for my favorite episodes. I don't know which one I liked the most. But it was Mold. And why Mold is like such a great episode to me is because it's in black and white. It leaves it mysterious color, so I don't have to like really picture it. And I think that what left the disturbing. But the part where the baby comes out, it's like he looked like Tim. It's like whom? And it's like the baby. And this baby comes out, and I just like this impending doom that's happening inside of this man's thought process and in his house. And I really enjoyed that episode a lot. I think that was one of the solid episodes. The second episode I have to say is solid is called Layers of Terror. And that was the episode where they find this baby skull that's been like, it's got like layers of how it was buried. And then you see later on that this girl gets into a car accident that was like a child actor, and her eye gets like attached from her body. And then they have like a layer of skin. I thought that was a great episode, except for one part of the episode where like the mom and the doctor explains about the layers that's going on, and she's like, what? That's weird. And then like her daughter that she hates is on the bench, and then she's on the bench, and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, it's so weird, I never thought she had this. And then like the daughter's like, well, that explains my teeth. And she opens up her teeth, and there's like 16 sets of teeth.
Yeah, well, she didn't say that explains her teeth. She said like, I also have
that's
this.
Right. And then she
she's
shows
like,
it,
no,
and
you
the
don't.
mom's...
And she's like, look, and she opens it, and the mom's like, ah.
Well, no, the mom doesn't even react.
Well, you don't
like,
see it.
oh.
It cuts for that second.
I wish they would have just like went and be like, what? Like, it kind of reminded me, like, there's a part in one of the crappiest movies alive, but one of my favorite movies on The Room, where like Lisa's mom's talking to each other, and then he's like, I definitely have breast cancer. And he's like, I don't know if I love Johnny anymore. And you're like, whoa, you're gonna glance over your mom's got breast cancer? And like, that's how I felt with the teeth. Like, I was like, you're just gonna glance over that and not gonna explain that? But that episode got me pretty hard, because like when she starts ripping off the layers of this little girl, and all that's left is like that head, and she's like, you're like, what? And she's like, it must be me, I've been around her. And she like cuts her face.
I knew that was going to,
I knew it was going to happen. But how they did that episode, the animation in that episode is really good. It's a good episode. And I was like, man, if they would have just done this whole anime like that animation, this music was great. The setup and the plots were great. The only problem I had was the teeth thing. Like, I was like, you're just gonna leave that on the table? But those 2 episodes are my favorite, and it actually led me into like, all right, I'm gonna see how bad this collection is. So I ended up watching it on YouTube, and I was like, okay, this is actually better than the collection. They took a step forward in the animation. There is some good stories on the collection, and I really fell in love with this artist. Like, I think this will be something that I will put up there next to like Neil Gaiman, Stephen King, Joe Hill, like a lot of those people. Like, I really thoroughly enjoyed this series, the stories. And I can't wait to see the mangas, because I think if I read the mangas, I'm actually going to love the mangas more than the translations.
Oh, of course. But I'm like I said before, because you're going to get to pace it in your head as you go.
Yeah. Well, then I think the black and white works.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When that episode played and I watched it in black and white, I'm like, why didn't they just make the whole thing in black and white?
Agreed. If they would have just done it,
been solid. The only episode that I felt like actually benefited from it not being black and white was the bully episode. when it showed them as kids, and it was like more vibrant or whatnot, and you kind of got this idea that it's like, yeah, it is supposed to show that the kids are innocent. Like there's an innocence to the kid, even though the one kid was a complete nerd. But it's like that's a solid use of coloring.
Tried to drown him, beat him with a stick, let him fight with a dog.
Made him jump off the.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Or tried to make him jump, and then the mom stops her. I'm like,
it's not the craziest revenge tale I've seen, but it's pretty bad. I think that the other one's worse. The revenge tale I know.
I just was like, there was so many stupid, like,
episodes.
Not even like stupid episodes, but like either stupid scenes or stupid altogether. Like the Suichi episodes were by far the stupidest episodes.
The four-wall episode was awful. I hated that episode. Where it's like,
where it's like a little box.
I made like a maze.
Yeah,
he's like, I made a maze for you to
fell
go
in
through.
the poopy area. And I'm like,
I thought he was going to be murdered. I thought he was going to like kill him.
I thought it was too. When he was climbing through the area,
cut.
Yeah,
because there was nails everywhere. I thought he was going to get cut, go in the poop, get infected, and die of a horrible infection. Like,
I thought what was going to happen is as he was climbing through the nails, it started getting it would start getting smaller and smaller, and by the time he realized he's stuck, the board would start like slowly crushing him with the nails, and then it would be like the ending thing would be Suichi on the other side laughing as like it slowly like, and you just see blood pour out. Like that's what I thought was going to happen. It's like, nope.
Well, or an interesting thing, I think that like you had a good point there. Like if he gets stuck in the nails, he has to live there until he dies, because one, that whole place is soundproof.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna know unless they think he went missing, but like all they know is that small space. They don't know about the other thing. It was a perfect setup, and I thought it was just lame.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is just an episode of just kookiness. And Suichi,
you know what made me think for a second? You know what I actually thought? Is I wondered if like Suichi was a self-insert for the artist or whatever. Or like maybe his brother, like this idea of like this kid that is in multiple different.
He has like a twisted mind, so he like kind of relates to him in a way.
Like something like that. I'm like, I don't know, like just because this character is the only character that is rehashed, like him and his family. So I'm like, maybe like this is his either self-insert or his like what if story. I don't know. But other than that, like, yeah, I liked it. Is it the best thing ever? No, definitely not. But I thought there were some great episodes with some really crazy things. And the one episode that always made me chill at the end was the hair episode, when the girl would like rattle her teeth and that like clicking noise, and it just fades to black to that clicking noise. That like actually like hit me weirdly, like mentally. Like that just made me feel unwell in that moment. So that was a solid.
I think this anime would have been really well done if they would have just done one simple concept that I always tell people that horror need to do to make a good horror film is breathable area. And that is like in between stories, there should be enough to breathe, like in the disturbing thing that you saw, than just jumping to the next thing real quick. And I feel like this anime is like kind of have that problem where they don't let you breathe a lot of it, or like process what you just saw. They like jump you into the next thing, and you're like, what just happened? And now the only time that they did allow you to breathe is like, that's why I thought the two-parters were really good, because the two-parters were it was like the second part was usually the best part out of it, except for I think the Mold and Library Vision episodes. I think those were great. I thought those two were really good stories, but overall I think the show it's okay. Like it's better than the 2018 collection. I'll tell everyone that. And I hope they keep going forward with this and they get someone behind it, because I know Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, has announced that they are doing their own collection, and it comes out I think this year actually. Of Junior Ute, and they actually show, I think it's called Higurashi or something like that. Is the name of
that? I don't know. Higurashi, when they cry, is actually
it's not Higurashi. It's Nakata Eishe or whatever it is. It's some Cartoon Network show that's coming out, and Junji Ito is the one that animated and wrote those stories. I forget what it's really called. Nagasuma. I forget. I was just watching a review, like a trailer on it. But Cartoon Network is coming out with their own.
Oh, Uzumaki.
Uzumaki, that's what it is. Sorry guys for saying all those weird words that I don't know anything about. Look at me being stupid.
Yeah, it's an upcoming anime horror based on the manga by Junji Ito. Series is a co-production between Adult Swim and Production IG. The show was originally meant for air in 2021, has been delayed and expected in October 2022. Oof. And Uzumaki was announced in 2019 as a Crunchyroll Expo. Oof.
But they recently just came out with a teaser trailer, and they said that they're almost done. If I'm correct, I watched that trailer. I don't know if that trailer is right or wrong.
I don't know. A lot of the stuff I'm saying is saying that it has not been announced yet. And small screen time in late 2023 would be our best get. It seems like Uzumaki is ironically a little bit cursed when it comes to this production.
Yeah, I heard it's been going on for a while.
When it comes out, we can watch it because it looks like it's all going to be in black and white. But
yes, I've seen like the trailer for it. It was a year ago when that trailer came out. So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, that'll be fun. Austin, what are we watching next week?
So next week we are watching something very interesting. First on Bros and Shows, we are watching a documentary. Actually, we're watching a murder doc. My favorite murder doc of all time. It is called The Jinx: The Lives and Deaths of Robert Durst. This is based on true story events. So I'm just going to give a warning to anyone that's listening out there. If you do not like to hear true crime stuff, please do not watch this episode, because there is some things like they show feet and stuff like that of like people have been sawed off. It's not gruesome or anything. It's just they just show like, a body part or something like that. This story is very interesting, and something happens in this documentary that has never happened before in a murder doc. And what I'm going to say is this, so that you can expect it. The person that they are doing the murder doc on actually is interviewed through the whole thing. So that is the whole cool thing about it. So you'll get to know some of the backstory of how that guy decided to be part of the doc in the show, and then we'll watch it. It's only 6 episodes, and they're like 45 to an hour each, I think. But it was a mini series on HBO, and you can watch it on HBO Max. But yeah, we're gonna watch that. So,
all right, sounds good. Well, Austin, I appreciate you joining me on this episode of Bros and Shows.
Yeah.
And then next week, watching The Jinx, or the documentary of The Jinx. So, heck yeah, buddy, let's do it. Let's watch a documentary. Let's see how it goes. So, Austin, thank you so much for stopping by, for joining me on this episode, and thank you all so much for tuning in. Oh, hey Sanders. Hey, Matt. How you doing? You just missed us. Good night.
Good night.